Welcome to the Voices of Davos here at SandboxAQ on the Promenade. Today we're honored to have Yossi Matias, the head of Google Research. I'll let Yossi introduce himself.
Hi, great to be here. I'm Yossi Matias. I've been at Google for some time and now heading all of Google Research.
So Yossi, before we go into the amazing career that you have at Google, how did you start the career and how did you get actually into technology? Because I don't even know myself.
Good question. So I was always passionate about various disciplines, and in a way, when I look back into my studies, it was both a question of various disciplines, but also a question of going deeper on research versus going and build stuff. Since I love building products, love to see things that are in reality. I actually found myself starting with math and physics and then taking computer science, and then on the fence whether I want to take some pretty interesting work opportunities versus going for further studies. I ended up actually doing my master, my PhD, actually went to Bell Labs, when this was actually the best place in the world to do research in the math center, the famous math center that Claude Shannon and Hamming were many years before me. But then also once in a while building initiatives, actually starting Bell Labs, and later also took a faculty position, but started companies, going back and forth. About 20 years ago, actually, Google reached out to me, said, "Hey, we'd like to open a center in Israel." We had discussion about possibly taking it on, and at some point I asked, "What would you want me to do if I take it on?" And Ellen Eustace, who hired me, said, "Hey, we'd like you to figure it out." So I said, okay, that sounds interesting. I was just about to look for my next startup, and I was at that time just on the leave from faculty position in Tel Aviv University and visiting Stanford, and also in the startup. So I decided to take it on, and that's how I got into Google and building a center in Israel from 0 to 2,500 people, working for over a decade on the leadership of search at Google. And then some 7-8 years ago, realized that machine learning is going to change everything, that it's time to actually go back and focus on research. And indeed, what we're seeing today is this amazing, it's practically the golden age of research, of taking research and driving really breakthroughs on vast types of questions and bringing them to reality. So that's what I'm doing today.
It's interesting. It's a very googly thing to do. I mean, Google always said we hire smart people so they can tell us what to do, not for us to tell them what to do. So that's exactly what he did for you in Israel. So if you can tell us a little bit about what are the main topics in Google Research that you're focusing on.
So first let me actually build on that. Indeed, one thing that I'm really excited about is what I like to call the magic cycle of research, which essentially it's about driving research on a problem that would make a difference. Let me give an example. In climate resilience, this is about how to use technology and AI to actually help address natural disasters. People are coming to Google in order to, during crisis, during say floods or storms, to look for information. And one of my hats, I'm also overseeing, our solutions for natural disasters and situations. So for example, we launched in search and maps what we call SOS alerts. In that process, I discovered that, as much as we are helpful with providing this kind of information, there's natural disasters that were not very helpful because floods, which kill thousands of people every year, in order to be helpful, you need to provide some predictions. And when I was asking around, the experts some 7 years ago, everybody were telling me, oh, this is too difficult to actually solve. Too many variables. How do you actually do the prediction in a way that is trustworthy and high confidence? Because this is a problem that we knew, if we can make a difference, if we can move the needle that would save lives, I decided, well, we need to try anyway. Now, fast forward, we now have a system that provides prediction, up to 7 days predictions, in 150 countries, covering 2 billion people for severe river and floods. It's actually already saving lives. And of course, in order to get there, we needed to drive research and then trying out in a pilot in India first, and then expanding further, going to Bangladesh. then hitting some walls about how do we actually do predictions in countries that don't have the amazing data collection that they already have in places such as India and Bangladesh. This actually triggered more research. We actually published a paper in Nature about what we call a global hydrologic model that enabled us to scale to where we are today. And this is ongoing research to keep actually addressing this important problem. But even in other domains, one area that I've been excited about for a long time is how to use AI for healthcare. Mm-hmm. Some of it predates the Gen AI revolution. We have this legacy effort called diabetic retinopathy, where we had a landmark paper by our team in Google Research showing that we can use machine learning classification to identify a condition called diabetic retinopathy, where 400 million people with diabetics are actually at risk of getting this condition. If not treated, it can lead into blindness. Mm-hmm. And what we showed in that paper is that we can use machine learning classification to identify that in par with experts. Now, it took a few years for that to get to the clinics, working with amazing partners in Thailand and India. However, by now, we had already systems that had already more than 1 million screenings. And, I was visiting there a couple of years ago, and what I really discovered is that not only the system, people can get the AI to do the screening and get result which is 20% better than what they get before, because previously they could not get it from an expert, they would get it from a general practitioner. But the fact that they actually got it on the spot made a huge difference. So before, people could wait a few weeks until they got a result. Only 1 in 5 or so may have followed up on that. What I've seen in my own eyes, no pun intended, is that somebody is getting into a clinic, sitting in front of the camera. In 2 minutes, they're getting the diagnostic and they follow up right away. Yeah. So, there's a lot of progress in this space, and, we put out a model called MedGemma, which essentially is our best medical type open source model that allows developers to build on that applications for healthcare with over 2 million downloads. And I'm seeing so many different applications that developers are doing that. So we're relatively in the early stages of actually building on AI, but amazing opportunity for healthcare.
Okay, cool. So Yossi, with all the work that you're doing at Google Research, what gets you mostly excited?
Yeah, so these are exciting times. One thing I'm really excited about is, we're really passionate about driving science, but today we have opportunity which is greater than ever to accelerate scientific discovery itself with AI. Here's an example. We have a system called AI Co-Scientist, which essentially allows a researcher to pose a question. The AI system is going to apply agents to do literature research, create hypotheses, try to validate them to the extent possible, rank them, bring back hypotheses to the researcher, and so forth. In initial partnerships that we had, for example, with Imperial College London, they were looking for multi-year research on superbugs. They came with a hypothesis. After a few years, they did not publish it yet. And then they worked with our system, and in 3 days or so, they got a similar hypothesis, and they got another hypothesis. And when I spoke with them about their experience, it was like working with an amazing collaborator. Similarly, we had other partnerships with Stanford and others on an initial finding, such as in drug repurposing for AML, or novel hypothesis for liver fibrosis, and so forth. So the premise of actually having a system that can assist scientists accelerate their own research, I think is very exciting. I envision that in the future, junior scientists, even perhaps grad students, could actually have, each of them will have a kind of a virtual lab in their disposal, so that it can actually ask bigger questions and make bigger progress. And so the way I think about it is that amplifying AI as an amplifier of human ingenuity is not only a prediction, it's a design goal. And we need to work towards that. We're building the right systems, as well as also working towards making sure that everybody can actually build on that and benefit from that and benefit society.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.